Everyone, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the Better the Pond Pondcast, where we talk to amazing people doing incredible things that lead the charge of generosity. My name is Warren Berry, and I'm your host and the founder of Instinctive Solutions, where we believe that everyone is an odd duck, but that's what makes them awesome. Today, our guest is Tim Rogers. Now, Tim is the owner of the Lancaster Tap House here in Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. He was born and raised in Regina, and he was actually a ball boy for the infamous Saskatchewan Roughriders Football Club. And until he took off to go to school out in Calgary, Alberta. Now, it was a defining moment that brought him back to Regina, and here he was falling into the restaurant business. Tim believes in believing in the gold to fight childhood cancer. He supports local charities and the community, and this is how Tim likes to better the pond. Ladies and gentlemen, Tim Rogers. Tim Rogers, I really want to thank you ever so much for your time and being a guest on my Better the Pond Pondcast today. Great to have you.
I'm happy to be here, Warren.
Tim, what got you from being a gosling to leaving the nest to being where you are today? What's your backstory, Tim?
Well, this is great where it's a podcast and I can just talk a lot, right? This isn't a 30-second conversation. So let's go back to age 2. No, I'm just kidding.
That would be a gosling.
That would be a gosling. But you know, in all honesty, I mean, my first job was delivering papers, right? Which is kind of the kids' version of entrepreneurs, right? When you think of it. But you know, my real first, going right back to, you know, my first job was, I was lucky enough, and I worked for the Saskatchewan Roughriders football team. I was a ball boy as a kid.
Really?
And what a cool. I mean, it was. You worked hard. We worked 10 hours a day, 28 days a month. Like, it was a lot of work for. There were no labor standards. There was no minimum wage or anything. I think they paid me whatever. And this was the Roughriders back in the 90s when they had no money, right? So they would give you a check for $100 or $150 at the end of the month, right? But it was, you know, when all my friends were kind of, you know, 13, 14 years old and screwing around, I got thrown into this, you know, number one, spending every day with my heroes, but this, you know, working in this professional team environment where everybody in that locker room got treated like I really give that job a lot of credit for, you know, a lot of early responsibility I had.
And how old were you at the time, Tim, when you did that job?
I think 14 till about 17.
Oh, for a few years.
So
give me some names. Who back in those days? Who were the big riders of that era?
Oh, my first year, Ken Austin was our quarterback. Ray Algard, Don Narcisse, Glenn Suter, Albert Brown, James Curry, Dave Ridgway. You know, there was still, you know, the 89 team. A lot of those guys were still there, right? So it was pretty neat.
And if you think about that, like from back in the 89 team, right? I mean, an epic year for the Riders.
Yeah.
And here you are in the dressing room. I mean, these guys had to have been larger.
Well, I wasn't there in 89. I was there.
No, but I mean the same guys though.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that was part of it. It was, you know, literally these guys were my absolute heroes. I mean, when you grow up in Saskatchewan, the Riders are as big as any celebrity, right? And from one day, these guys are posters on my wall to the next day, I'm spending every single day with them. Unbelievable. And I can tell you some stories, good and bad, but a lot of fun stuff happened there. Really, really cool how even as a young kid, those guys included you as part of the team. And some of those guys that were legends then are people I would call buddies now that I see all the time and talk to all the time. So it was a pretty neat job to have at that age.
That's pretty amazing. I mean, really, how many people get that opportunity? So while we're on the topic, right? Yeah. I need one fun story, one good story from not a bad story, not a locker room story, but a fun story from back in the day with the Riders.
I'm going to tell you a locker room story because it's the classic. It's one of the greatest stories, I think. And so I had just started and I'm meeting all these guys, and, you know, Dave Ridgway, the kicker, was obviously Robo Kicker, won the Grey Cup, big name. And he didn't really seem to be that friendly those first couple of days. And he kind of was, and who you'd expect some of the pros to be. You know, he was all business. He didn't talk to me a lot, and he was very, hey, ball boy, do this. Hey, ball boy, do this. He didn't call me by name, and this went on the first week, and I thought nothing. You know, I was still trying to figure out, what am I doing here? What's my job? And so it was about a weekend, and he comes into the trainer's room after, and he goes, ball boy, I am too tired. Take my pants off for me. And I went, this doesn't seem right. But, and again, this is a different age and a different, but okay. So I get in there and I yank his pants down, and he kind of kicks them on the ground, and he just looks at me and goes, son, the jock strap too. And I'm like, oh, fuck no. But I hear this, and I look up, and he's killing himself laughing. And then I hear this roar of laughter, and I turned around, and the whole team is lined up at the trainer's window laughing their asses off. And so that was his little initiation for even the ball boy. And that was this pretty cool moment where it went from, I don't know what I'm doing here, to holy shit, these guys are pretty funny. So,
and now you're officially a rider.
And now you were part of the team for the year. Yep. So there was a lot of the shenanigans that went on back there.
Oh, I'm sure. All the stuff that, you know, of course, on the field and everything, you see that side. And of course, in the locker room's a whole different scenario if you've ever played sport.
Unbelievable, just, you know, being on the side and seeing that game from a different time, and seeing the, you know, getting to know the coaches and seeing how they interact with the players. And it was just, like I said, I mean, when I talked to, I give that a lot of credit. I mean, Normie Fong, who was the equipment manager, my boss at the time, he he rode us hard. There was no treating kids with kid gloves back there, right? He'd hold you accountable to everything, and if you didn't do it, he'd smack you in the back of the head and call you a name. And it wasn't anything you because you were in that environment of all these guys, like, nobody's going to cry and say the boss is mean to me, right? You're not going to cry in front of the riders, right? So you got used to it, and to this day, I put a lot of what I learned in those couple of years is kind of, you know, taking accountability for yourself, I think, and everybody kind of pulling to be part of a team. So
yeah, absolutely. I'm sure there, you know, even though you look nowadays with what's going on, but back then, I mean, there was probably a lot of lessons learned, right?
Absolutely.
A lot of valuable lessons learned, and that help mold and shape you, especially in those years. They're very formative years.
You know what? Even I'll remember, I'll tell you that my first day, I grew up real fast, right? And I learned about 100 words that I hadn't learned the day before on my first day on the job. And most of them you can't repeat on TV. So.
Very, but you did not repeat them at home, I'm sure.
Never, no, not at all.
So you're originally from Regina?
Born and raised in Regina, yeah. Yeah. So I moved to I moved to Calgary for about 5 years, and for no other reason than I turned 18 and you could drink in 18. So I said, let's go out there and have some fun. And, you know, I went to university, wasn't my thing. I went there for a couple of years, but I was done with learning for a while, right? So I went out there, and, you know, through some connections I had from the Roughriders, but I worked in concessions for the Calgary Cannons baseball team. And that was a blast too. And I went to school. I was out there. I went to art school, and I went to the Alberta College of Art. And I kind of wanted to be an artist, but that wasn't my calling. So kind of bounced around, ended up going to this little computer graphics tech school, and kind of learned about, you know, computer graphics in the late 90s when that was starting to be a thing. So that was kind of neat. Mm-hmm. And yeah, one day I got just something in my head. I literally woke up one morning and said, it's time to move home. I had no reason to or not to, and just said, time to go back to Regina. So came back home.
So do you remember that defining moment when you
deciding to move back home?
Yeah.
I do, clearly. And in this time, you know, this is 1998 or 1999, I think, when, you know, things were still pretty rough in this province, and certainly the road out was way busier than the road in, right?
Yep.
But I do, like, clear as day. It was a Tuesday morning, and I woke up, and, you know, I was living in this townhouse with two buddies, and we were having a blast, drinking too much, and, you know, just being 19, right? And there was nothing wrong. There was no reason. I had no job or any reason to. I just went, it's time to move home.
Is there something that you learned from that lesson? There's a reason I'm asking this question, Tim, but
Yeah.
that out of that defining moment, did something come out of that shifted you or changed either in the way you thought or the things that you did?
I don't know about that, what came out. I think it was more, I think when I left here to move to Calgary, I didn't have a high vision of a high opinion of the city of Regina or the province. And, honestly, Calgary was a stepping stone to Vancouver or Toronto or LA or anything. It was, when you're that age, you're going to take on the world. And so that was like, get out of here. And I think it just, I always tell people that live in the city, if, when they say I always say that the way to appreciate Regina best is to go live somewhere else. And I think we get this clouded vision of what Regina is. And I think when you go to a big city like Calgary, even, you realize that, well, Regina has everything that Calgary has. Calgary just has 5 of them.
Right.
Like this is a great city, and you have to kind of get that perspective on it. So I don't know if that answers the question, but
Yeah, well, it's interesting because when I was in the restaurant, which I was in the restaurant industry, so
yeah,
I was a chef, right, a part owner,
yeah,
and I remember it was a Wednesday morning. It was 7 o'clock. I woke up and I decided at that moment that I was done in that industry. It was a
yeah.
defining
Like
moment, right?
it's kind of I think the thought that I had to move, and I was kind of this. You get those where those are decisions that, however they work in life, there's no thought behind them. They're just suddenly in your head, and it's the right call, right?
Mm-hmm. And I think
Yeah,
it leads you, and that's what I was asking you. What's interesting is that decision is made in that second, and you move from it. You don't
yeah.
rationalize, you don't think about it. Maybe after the fact, you can do that all you want, but
That was it. There was no, should I think about this? Am I making, it was big, like big life decisions too, right? That you can make that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
So there you are in Calgary.
yeah,
You've had a 4-year hangover, and and you make your way back to the Queen City.
yeah.
So
I got, we're continuing my connection with the Roughriders, because I still, after I was a ball boy, I did some volunteer work for them. I worked up in the press box for a couple of years, and going to this computer graphics school, the Riders didn't have a website at that time, and we were learning how to build websites. So I phoned the Riders and said, hey, can I build a website for you? And they said, we don't know what a website is or what that's going to do for us. So sure, go ahead, Tim. So I built designed the very first Rough Riders website, or maybe it was the second, I don't know, but it was the first graphical one. I think they had a little text thing there before, and it was more just, it was a school project, really, right? If you can imagine that. But that kind of hooked me up with this a sponsor of theirs, this cell phone company called the .com store.
mhm.
And so through that connection, they'd hired me as a graphic artist. And one of my first jobs was converting the .com store over to their website and new brand, which was called jump.ca, and which is pretty successful business for them now. And also they started a software business called IQmetrics. And so IQmetrics today is a very large company, but I got to work at 21 years old, being the graphics guy for this little startup software company that was about, I think they have 600-700 employees now, but this started with about 9 or 10 of us in an office the size of my bedroom. So that was pretty fun. So they had a creative director who quit within 2 weeks of me being there, and they promoted me to be creative director. And the other graphics guys were so pissed off, they all quit. So I got hired by this company as a junior graphic artist at 2021, I can't remember. And within a month, I was the creative director, or creative director, I think was the job, with no staff. So that was another little life-challenging moment there.
Do you still have that copy of that original Rider website that you did?
I do, you know what? I was kind of decluttering my house over COVID, and I think I found some cases of old CDs, and I'm pretty sure that website's on there. The problem is I don't have any way to read a CD right now. So
Yeah, good point. But wouldn't that be
yeah,
interesting to look back and see at the time of what you created back then, which they didn't even know what a website was. You do all this work, you put this website up, which is something, wow, right?
yeah,
And now and
yeah.
then, compare it to today's standards.
To what it is today. Yeah, and I mean, it was obviously there wasn't any interactivity to it. It was pretty much just an information. But no, I can remember what it looks like, and it was just think of it now. I think it was a pretty nice site even for then.
Yeah, interesting. So
Yeah,
here you are. Here you are. you you're this graphic designer, and you have no staff.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
everybody got angered. And where did your life take you from there? This is a very interesting story.
Well, thanks. No, I was the time at IQ Metrics was so much fun because like everybody in this company was young. It was this startup. It was at the time, the first little bit. I've never confirmed this officially with the owners, but this is at that time before the internet bubble burst, where Microsoft was buying out companies for millions of dollars, and they didn't even have a product. It was just they buy the idea, right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like we were almost just developing this idea, hoping that we'd get bought out. And then the internet bubble burst, and it was almost like, shit, we better get our stuff together and get to work. And so it was a lot of fun working on that then, because we were all, I think Chris and Greg, the owners at the time, were maybe 29 or 30. We were all in our early 20s, and we all had these, like, because we were trying to compete with, our competitor was Microsoft or Sony or whatever, we'd go to these trade shows. And so we needed to look like a legit business. So we all had these crazy titles, right? I'm like director of marketing, and I'm no idea what I'm doing, and 20 years old, and we're making shit up as we go along, but it was fun, and we had a blast. We every day at about 2:00 work would stop, and we'd play volleyball in the office and drink beer and go to the park, and it was a fun time. It was pretty neat. So yeah, I look back on that. There was my first 3 years there were so much fun. We were building this cool thing, and then what happened was we started being successful, and we started growing, and it stopped being fun, because all of a sudden we were in this bigger office. I had a corner office. I had staff. I didn't get to do the fun stuff anymore. I was just managing staff. I didn't know how to manage staff, and so I think the lack of experience finally caught up to me then, and it just stopped being fun. And yeah.
But was it a lack of experience, Tim, or was it you? And the reason I asked that question, right, is it's fun, it's new, it's creative, it's spontaneous. To now I'm having to manage people, so now I have to create a system, and I got to make sure that people do their jobs, and right,
Yeah.
your role changed, like your experience.
Oh yeah.
With you, but what you had to do would have completely changed, right?
Warren, it's interesting you said that, and I think even just the stuff I've learned, working with you and the Colby is you're right. That's not what I do.
Yeah, that's not who you are. So you didn't get
thanks for that light bulb.
So you didn't get a chance to be who you were anymore, and therefore it lost its fun.
Yeah.
And now I want out.
So
right.
Yeah. So, and I'll be honest, it was kind of depression set in, and I kind of fought with that for a couple of years of just not, family and friends were so happy for me for working for this growing successful company and being at the top, but at the end of the day, it was miserable. It was weird. It was just not good.
So there's a real life example of the research that I'm doing, and I'm talking about cognitive stress and pain and disengagement and those kind of things, right? So you went from having fun, this is a blast, right, to depression, right? Yes. And you were the same person in the same company, and what changed was your role.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. That is really interesting.
And no fault of your own.
Yeah. Just, or anybody's really, I guess, that's, nobody there had the tools to recognize that. I mean, and if they had they said, hey, Tim, we're not going to give you this promotion because we don't think your brain works that way, I would have given them the finger. And,
Well, there's gentler ways to pose that issue. But,
Right.
so where'd you go from there? I mean,
Well, and this is, I think this is how we get to the restaurant industry. And what happened was I was working on, I loved working in bars and restaurants in Calgary, and I had so much fun. I worked for, my uncle had bars and restaurants, and I looked up to him. He's such a fun guy and such a fun atmosphere. And so that was kind of like, if I could do one thing for the rest of my life, I'd bartend, because that was fun. And so I kind of started it was just a pipe dream of like, I'd like to open my bar and restaurant one day. And I don't think it was ever serious, but just kind of as an escape from this thing that I was so miserable in, I started working on a business plan, and I started sort of just kind of almost it was like fantasy restaurant, right? Where I was creating this restaurant just to kind of escape into. And so I was building this business plan. And so I was working on costs and real estate costs, and I called this developer and landlord I know, and just said like, hey, rough idea, if I was going to put a restaurant in this area, what would cost be? And he said, well, here would be about this number. But to be honest, we're working with the guys right now that are already building a restaurant in that area, so we probably wouldn't work with you on this. And it was no big deal, because I wasn't serious anyway, right? Like in my head, this was never happening. It was just something I was working on. And they called about a couple of weeks later, and he called back and said, I think we should talk to you about this, because I think we need another partner, and I think we need somebody that's younger and on the ground floor that could run this. And so it went from, I met with these guys, and it went from this kind of this pie in the sky, I wasn't really serious, to just like that, holy crap, this is happening.
So if you look now back at that, right, of your image or your dream of what your restaurant looked like in your head, and to look at Lancaster's Tap House now, how similar?
So that was in Lancaster. This was my first restaurant, which was called Rock Creek.
Oh, right. That's right. Sorry about that. That's right.
No, that's okay. Yeah. So, it was, I had a blast there. It never felt mine. And, we did some cool things, but I was always the junior guy, and that never sat well with me. And, I had partners that I wasn't crazy with some of the things they were doing. And so it just, after about 5 years, Joel Williams was our chef, and I knew he was kind of not happy with the way things are going. So I just kind of said, hey, Joel, let's kind of go do our own thing. And so that's where Lancaster came, about 5 years after that. So.
Okay. So let me jump back to that same question again.
Yeah.
It came around, right? So let's say 5, 6, 7 years prior, you have a dream in your mind.
Yeah.
Then Lancaster's Tap House comes into fruition. There it is. There's reality, right? Mm-hmm. How close are those pictures from what you had in your head to what you created now?
100% exactly. In a creepy way.
Isn't that interesting?
It was no, I had it like, and it was like Joel and I had a very shared vision once we started. Like, I think my vision for what Lancaster's ended up being, mm-hmm. that vision was exactly what I was working on, 5 years earlier on that business plan. I think that was in my head. But then, Joel and I had this kind of shared vision of, we wanted this, we call Lancaster the ski chalet on the prairies, right? We wanted this very classic, cozy feel to it. Mm-hmm. And I remember the day we opened, and I looked at it and I said to Joel, I'm like, this is exactly, you always have things in your head and they never work out to, the reality is always different. But this was the one thing where it was exactly what was in both of our heads. It was like to the colors, to where things were. Like, it was bizarre.
Wow. Isn't that incredible?
Yeah. Very much. Yeah.
And for all our listeners out there, I'm going to do this probably throughout this podcast, right? We got big shout out to Lancasters, because honestly, and I mean, being a chef myself, so being a restaurateur that I was, right?
Yeah.
I understand good food. I understand good service. I understand great ambiance, right?
Yeah.
And I think that you guys have really hit it on the head for all those levels. Every time I've been there, it's been fantastic service, really laid back. He's got a sort of laid back professional sort of feel to it, right? But the food was, it was absolutely top to the bacon jam on the burger. That is just absolutely to die for. So But really, it's been absolutely top drawer. And I'm not saying that
Awesome.
just because, that you're here. I say that because I'm being honest, right? You guys have really done a fantastic job in an industry that's very hard to do in.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. And, I will never, ever, I can't ever take any credit for our food because I am absolutely not a chef. And actually, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. I always take credit for our food, even though I'm not a chef and don't do it. But I think that's where I think Joel and I have this great dynamic where there is there's no overlap between us and there's no ego. We work. I've never had from coming from a situation where I didn't have great partners to a situation where I had Joel and he does his thing and I do my thing, and we interact with each other. We give each other input, but at the end of the day, that kitchen, that food, that menu, that's his. The front, the ambience, and the marketing, that's mine.
Yeah.
And I've never had a working partner that I've worked with that way before.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting that, one day you decide to come back to Regina, down the road, here you are, you fall into the restaurant industry, which I did as well. So I appreciate that. Right. And then, you meet Joel there and now boom, you got this, you've got happiness and joy. So it's interesting looking back to see how those aspects of life just kind of fall in your lap and the decisions that you make and get you where you want to go.
Sometimes it's hard to quantitate that, right? There's times where you try and push for something and it never works out, and there's other times where you're right, just pieces just come together.
It's serendipity. I think it's absolutely fantastic. So Tim, I believe that we're all odd ducks. I believe that we're all misfits, right?
Yeah.
So can you tell me about a time in your life when you've done something different to stand out, or you've done something unique, and that could be either positive or negative?
I think there's lots of times. I think you're. I love the odd duck thing. I like to call, and some of my staff get mad at me, but I call us the island of misfit toys. So I love that analogy because I love the going out and different. And I'm trying to think about that. I think there's lots of different things. I guess if I can come back to sort of the things we do at the Lancaster is, I think another thing that works for us is it's the Walter Gretzky thing quote, right? Go where the puck is, not where it's going to be, not where it is. And
right.
And I like to not chase the things that everybody else chases. I like to not. It's such the standard thing in the bar and restaurant industry that you have a New Year's thing and you have a St. Patty's thing and you have a Super Bowl party. And some of those we do, but you do those and all you do is there are these one days where everybody's butting heads trying to compete. And so I always like to make up our own events or find new and different things to do. And so we have a lot of fun with that, and so we've done, when it comes to sports, we don't really do a Super Bowl party. We do a Masters party, and we throw this big, massive party for golf, and it's hilarious because we bring in the video games. We partner with the golf stores and have putting contests, and we do, we've done Lebowski fests, and we do a big music fest every year, and we do, we try and find things that other people aren't working on, and so I love doing that. When we did the Lebowski fest, they wrote, the leader posted an article on it, and it has the best headline that if anybody ever writes anything about us, nothing will top this headline. And the headlines were Lebowski Fest at the Lancaster, Kings of Dumb Ideas, latest one. And it just was like, oh my God, I just want to frame that headline. And so I use that now all the time where I say, we're the kings of stupid ideas.
that could be that's a tagline right there,
right? Kings of stupid ideas, latest one.
That is fantastic. So can I call you the king of stupid ideas? Is that
do?
Is that about being, there's your misfit? That's what makes.
I'm proud of that moniker, right?
That was going to lead into my next line is what is your superpower and what makes you awesome? And I think you've actually just summed it up right there.
Yeah, this whole podcast is a challenge, right? Because talking about yourself is tough and challenging, but But you know, I am proud of that. I think I have a great ability to be creative and to brainstorm and to really get outside the box and like, what's the dumbest thing we can think of, and then let's do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then, that's one of the things, that, with us working together through, we'll give Linda Allen Hardesty from Tech Canada a shout out here, and her
Yeah.
group that
Hey,
you
Linda.
belong to, right? And, but really, and I always tell people like yourself that, you're going to come up with a lot of stupid ideas, right?
Hmm.
And which is great because, right. And actually some of them might even stick.
Yeah.
And what a gift that is to be able to totally think outside of the box and stretch it and, do things other people wouldn't do, because you're the kind of guy that really makes, well, number one, it makes things a lot of fun, but
Yeah.
number two is to push the boundaries, right? Of where can we go next? And
Yeah.
I think that it's a fantastic superpower.
You know, I can go back to my IQ Metrics days, and so the two brothers, Chris and Greg Krolek, that own that place, that run it, have this fantastic dynamic where Chris is just this. They're both geniuses in their own way. Where Chris is this guy, and I would sit in his office, and he would every day, and he would throw out 100 new ideas, and 99 of them would be, you'd shake your head and go, "What the hell are you talking about? What is that?" And then he'd give you that 100th one, and you go, "Holy shit, that's brilliant!" And then his brother was this other genius, where he was the guy who could take that. It's that sort of visionary integrator role, where he could take that role and make it happen. And I was always, I think growing up, I was a pretty shy kid. I was afraid to speak up and afraid to share my ideas. And it's still something I battle today. But watching that, I took a lot out of not being afraid of dumb ideas and taking that to the next level, and not even being afraid of bringing up dumb ideas, but let's do the dumb ideas.
Exactly, which is even better,
Yeah.
right? Actually, like
Yeah.
put it into action rather than
Yeah.
just have it tossed around in your head.
Yeah.
So like, you went back to being a kid, maybe you might have been shy, right? But could you see yourself even back then of having just this different perspective on life, or the different perspective on how you could do things? Maybe you never didn't verbalize it as much, but did your brain go there?
Oh yeah. I as a kid, I didn't, I didn't always fit in. I wasn't always, with the popular crowd. And I didn't notice so much when I was a kid, because I lived in the clouds when I was a kid. I was dreaming. I was a daydreamer. I lived in my own little world, and didn't even pay attention a lot of times to what else was going on in me. So yeah, absolutely. That was there from then.
And you still are,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Isn't that
Yeah.
fantastic, right? You take yourself with you wherever you go.
Yeah. It's to me, it's storytelling to me. When I was a kid, I loved comic books. I wanted to make comic books. When I went to university, I thought maybe film would be cool, and I wanted to be the next Steven Spielberg, but I realized I'd probably just end up holding a camera on the 6 o'clock news, so that wasn't going to be good. And then art school for the same thing. Maybe there's some creative thing with that, but what I do now is it's absolutely still storytelling, and that's what I love about the restaurant industry. Is we're creating those atmospheres is still that creative output of telling stories, and what's our food and what's our drink and why is this place like this. And if you look around the restaurant, I love putting little bits of myself all over the place, right from when you walk in the doors, it says "Don't panic" on the doors, because I love The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, to like little hidden things all over the place, because I like kind of using the business to be creative and to tell this narrative and tell this story. So that's fun. It's always there. That imagination has to be there.
Absolutely. And we just had this conversation just recently about your office, and and you said, well, why is it in a restaurant's office? It's boring. It's kind of this little hole off to the side, and and it's a desk and a chair,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, why is that, right? The whole other place is a beautiful, work of art, and the office is a doldrum
where
dungeon.
I spend most of my days, right, in this horrible room. And yeah, that was such a light bulb and that, I think that came from Linda with tech, is why don't you I love working at home, and I work from home lots of days because I'm more comfortable here, right? And I got all my stuff here, and so I can be more productive sitting on my couch than I can sitting in my office. And why is that? Well, because it's not a nice environment. And, it's nice you've got your brand new office you're sitting in, right? It's a great place.
Absolutely. So I was leading into that saying, because of that little aha, right? Now, what have you done with your office now to use your creative genius and to make it your space?
Well, it's still under construction, but I'm trying to make it I'm trying to make it that 1950s kind of sci-fi modern look to it. So I found a bunch of old like 70s wood paneling we're putting up, and some real retro furniture and
Green shag?
green. I gotta find a carpet. I no, I got the walls are green. I'm trying to find a yellow shag.
Oh, yellow shag.
Yeah.
With a rake.
Gold.
Gold.
Yeah.
Gold. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see it. So Tim, can you tell me about a time in your life when someone did something for you that left an impact on you, that left a mark?
I think there's just been a lot of people that, along the way that have been super instrumental of kind of recognizing who I am and what my talents are without me knowing it. From working in Calgary, where I was, working at the ballpark, and I wasn't selling hot dogs. They kind of recognized I had some leadership skills, so putting me into a position with some responsibility. Then to my days at IQ Metrics, where these bosses, this is an interesting story that Greg Kurlak, the one owner of IQ Metrics, told me not too long ago, that when he gave his first interview with me for this job, I told him that I didn't want to be there long. I wanted to open up my own restaurant. And I don't remember saying that. I can't remember I can't think of for the life of me why somebody in their right mind would say that in a job interview. And having said that, why he would hire me after that. But he did, and he talks about how he respected that because he saw that I had a vision, and he saw that I was going to be good for a time with the company. And I look back, my ownership group with Lancaster right now, it's they're investors, but they're a team of mentors to me, and they're all people who have one point been a person to me in my life, and that they've all from Greg, who was my boss then, to a couple guys that I've worked for, that own companies that I've worked for over the years, to a couple uncles, but they're all people that I've had a lot of respect from, and in turn they've all got behind me and financed my dream, really, and without any problems. Like it's such this incredible group that I have, and this incredible resource to reach out, and anytime I want to talk, they've got stuff for you. And so if you're looking for people that have done anything for me, I'll go with my investors, and maybe I'm sucking up to them, but they push me. They push me to make this business better. So.
Right. Yeah. And again, there could be all along your life, you'll come with people that will do these things for you right along the way. And it could be from when you were 2 to present day, right? And there's always people that have come along your path. And I always look at relationships as a reason or a season or a lifetime. They come into your life for a reason, and they come in and they, something happens. It could be good or bad, but it shifts you forward, and then they leave. And then there's a season where they stick around for a while, but then they leave, right? And then the lifetime ones are very few and far between, right? But
and sometimes there's those relationships that do come in and they provide something amazing and do leave, right? And it just kind of like that happens, and that's not a bad thing, right? Like there's those people that come in and do that, and they add something to your life and build on that.
And there's times, with my own experience, I've had somebody come in and turn my world upside down, and at the time looked like complete hell, but in retrospect, it was the best thing that ever happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then those people leave a mark.
Do you find that? I'm sorry. Can I ask you a question now?
Oh, hey, you're turning the tables. By all means,
I'm turning the tables. No, I think this is a thing that I've thought about a lot. With over COVID, our one restaurant closed, and I've thought a lot about how over the years, the last couple of years, as business has been tough and struggling. Mm-hmm. And you hear a lot from motivational speakers and influential people how failure is not a bad thing and failure is a good thing, and it's all about how you deal with failure. And I always used to think that's so bullshit, because if I fail at this business, I'm going to be penniless, out of work, and everyone's going to hate me, right? So I was always like, that sucks. And now that COVID shut a business down, and okay, I shouldn't say COVID shut a business down. That business was closing anyway. We had a restaurant, not the Lancaster, called the Capitol. We loved it. It was a great place. Mm-hmm. It just didn't hit the right vibe, and it just wasn't working. And so closing that was really tough. But I've realized this is just the biggest thing I've learned in the last couple of months, is how I've looked at it, and we're so much better. We're so much stronger going forward. And I look back and I went, holy crap, it's because we failed.
Exactly.
Right?
That's exactly it, right? The what you thought was the biggest failure actually ended up being your greatest gift.
We couldn't be at the business we're at right now. We couldn't be doing the things we're moving forward with right now had we not learned from that, from the wrong people we had, from the wrong attitude we had, from just the things not even wrong, but just the things we learned about it.
Right. So now has your tune changed a little now that you've actually had the experience?
In a positive way.
Yeah.
I feel more confident about things, because I don't think I've learned everything of what not to do, but I've learned such a big chunk of not even what not to do, but how to move forward and how to roll with the punches better. And
the resilience.
And it's the resilience. It's using your skills, right? If I'm a creative person, so it's using that creativity to how do you pivot and spin out of it, and it's almost made it more fun failing at one.
Say that again, one more time. It's what?
It's more fun.
More fun.
It's made it more fun, right?
Yeah. Failure made it more fun.
Yeah.
So when you said earlier about having motivational speakers and influencers, say that failure is a good thing, and you said, well, yeah, I used to think it was a bunch of bullshit.
Like, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That was always this one piece of advice where I went, bullshit. Failure's not good. Failure's I'm gonna be living on the streets, you jackass.
Failure can be a real gift, and it teaches you how to pivot. It teaches you how to be resilience. It lets your gifts come out, because it forces you to shift, and it doesn't allow you to be complacent anymore. And right, and it launches you to a whole new level. And what a gift that is.
Isn't that interesting?
Yep, absolutely.
I think that's been my my number one COVID lesson.
Yeah, and a great one, I might add.
I hope so. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure it is. So now, Tim? What are you doing right now to better the pond? And also, the bigger question to that too is, I want to know why you're doing it. So it's a two-part question.
Well, it's probably a two-part answer, because I think the restaurant industry is a terrible industry to get into, as you know. The margins, there's no money to be made, and it's a lot of work. But my favorite, one of my favorite all-time people and musicians, Gord Downey, has a line in one of them in his songs called "For Love Not Money," and I love that line. And that's, you can't not get into this industry if you don't have a passion for it, a love for it. And so there's always that. That doesn't mean that I'm still not a capitalist and still don't want to make money out of it, right? And so I'm very driven in both ways on, number one, enjoying this and having my own thing where I can create and build in, but also find ways to make it better, find ways to, I've been using, it's this word in the tech industry that's been going around for years, is disrupt, and I want to disrupt the restaurant industry. I want to find new ways to do it, especially now post-COVID. I want to find better ways to make it more profitable, better ways to make it good, not just for us, but find better ways to run restaurants for everybody. And so that's pretty exciting for me. I think I want to make the pond better for the restaurant industry that way. I want to make the pond better for this city. And I say this a lot, that I love running a business in Regina, because you get to be you get to be a player no matter what you do. I could have opened the Lancaster in a suburb in Calgary, and it would have been very successful or more successful, and I would have been, a nice little business, but nobody would ever know about it. It's just this business, right? Where you come to Regina, and I mean, I get to talk to people and influence people with the city and with designing what downtown's going to be and have a voice in that. The whole city knows what the Lancaster is. I get to communicate and take part in so many changes and really build, bringing something new to this Regina and being part of that culture. And so that's both those things are my two biggest passions, I think, is trying to redefine some things with the industry. And when I say redefine, I'm like, can we create something? Can we create something that adds 1 or 2 points to our bottom lines, right?
Right.
I'd be happy if we could do that.
And one of the reasons that I started this whole podcast to begin with was for the fact of, talking to people who were making a difference in the world, who were trying to make the pond, a better place. And I know you are. And one of the things that actually attracted me to you as well, Tim, not just you as a human being and the tap house, but there was also, the work that you were doing with the Believe in the Gold and fighting childhood cancer. So I'd love for the listeners to hear about what you're doing that way as well.
Yeah, that's a really neat program, and in fact, that's another tie back to being a ball boy with the Roughriders, because that's a program run by Dan Rasevich, who played for the Riders back in '89 Grey Cup, and is a great guy in the community these days. And this is kind of that's his passion. He's really taken on over the last couple of years and created this Believe in the Gold program in Regina. At least there's other outlets in Calgary, and I think Toronto too, they do it, but October is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and so what they usually do is they have this big fundraiser where people enter in, raise funds. They have this kind of fun run and fun day where they have all these activities and they raise all this money. This year, obviously with COVID, they weren't able to do it, so they did some online things, but we really wanted to jump in and kind of make that our own this year, and so we did Believe in the Gold month with the Lancaster, and we did $2 from every one of our local burgers went to the funds. We had a way to donate to the program directly through our website, and when you did that, we gave you free gift cards back for certain donations. And it was just whether it's Believe in the Gold or any other, we like working with charities. We like being involved in the community. We like, to me, a bar and restaurant or a bar anyway, like that classic pub that we want to be is more than a business, but it's that community hub, right? And so you need to connect with everybody, and that's a lot of fun doing that, especially when you can do it for something like childhood cancer and raise some funds and hopefully do some good.
Yeah, and really appreciate you putting all the effort into doing that as well, because it's very easy not to, and it's a lot of work to actually do the work. So the second part of the question is, why do you do it, Tim?
Why not? I know what you're asking, and I tell you what, there's times when you go into other restaurants that don't, that they're just restaurants. They're there, they're open 10 to midnight every day, and they serve food, and that's what they do. And you walk into our restaurants, and some days we're like that, and other days we're putting on some weird, stupid promotions. And to be honest, some of them fall flat on our face. It's we tried to throw a big Star Wars party when The Force Awakens opened, and we had a band, and they learned all the like Star Wars Cantina songs, and we spent all this money on these like lightsaber stir sticks and dressed up the whole bar, and I think 3 people showed up, right? So that question of why do you do it pops up a lot, because sometimes I think, why don't we just stop doing this and just be a restaurant and be open every day? But I don't know, where's the fun in that?
So is it about the fun, or is it the fun for yourself? Is it the fun that you want to provide the people that come to the Lancaster? Is it about promoting community, bringing people together? What's the deeper meaning behind it?
All of the above. Absolutely. It's trying to create something different with our brand. It's trying to do stuff that interests me, and that's fun. And it's trying to create things that hopefully other people find are fun. It's also, you're right, it's also reaching out in the community, and our competition is tough, especially with, the big chains and the big brands, right? Where they have these marketing spends that I can't compete with. I can't compete with some of these large brands that, they do all these things but what I can do that they can't do is these locally featured events. I can custom build my restaurant to what people in Regina and even Harbor Landing want. I can connect with the Regina Pats and the Regina Rams and Queen City Gymnastics, all these local groups, and work with them. I can connect with Believe in the Gold and do stuff like that. I can create these things, and that's what can set us apart from the brands, because they can't do that. They're just going to do the big national things, and so it's fun, but it's also how we differentiate ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I was in a chain restaurant. I will not mention it. A place of, it's up in my end of town, and I went there specifically for this pizza that they have, because I really enjoy it. And so I looked at the menu, and it's gone. I said, well, what happened? Like, oh, we got rid of all our pizzas. I said, well, why? Well, because Calgary said so.
Yeah, right.
Right. And so it's like there, that you have no ability to meet the needs of your clients or patrons, whatever you want to call them, your customers.
Yeah.
In that sort of scenario, it's somebody else is making the decision for you, where you have the ability to shuck and jive and maneuver to the needs and the wants of the people around you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what's fun, and that's what sets us apart, I think, as a local restaurant anyway. So
yeah, absolutely. So Tim, you are the wise goose on the pond. You are the sage. You have your crystal ball.
it's just the cardigan.
And it's a very nice one, but it's not even shiny. I'd like to know, what does the future look like? If you were to paint a picture of your golden pond, Tim, what would it look like?
That's a big scary question, right? But it's something I think I've thought a lot about, especially over COVID, and I think we really got to focus on what we want the Lancaster to be, where we want it to grow, and that in turn allowed me to think a lot about what I want to do and why I want to grow. And I don't know what the actual definition is or what that actual outlook is, but as far as the brand, we've got a clear picture of how we want to grow within the city. We're hoping to have 2 or 3 locations and then do some little more creative stuff. And we've got a neat vision for that. Me personally, what excites me is growing that brand enough so that I can stop doing the stuff I hate, the stuff that I'm not built for, is, the day-to-day admin stuff of the restaurant, and be able to focus more on sort of those creative outputs, whether it's for the business or myself personally. I think I've really opened up to doing getting more creative, getting back into those, we all put away those creative thoughts as we grow up and get the jobs. And I think, I'd like to create a lifestyle for myself where I can, get back into that a little bit more. And so hopefully that comes about. I've also just coming full circle, and I've taken a job doing some consulting work with IQmetrics, my old job, designing tools and apps for the restaurant industry. And so that's another kind of full circle thing that's both creative and fun. So it's coming back to that old company, and like you said, in a role I'm more comfortable with. So it's pretty exciting to do that.
Exactly. That's pretty fantastic. I never knew about that.
Yeah.
What I was going to say is, through COVID, I mean, there's a lot of industries that have been affected, but the restaurant industry was hit really hard, and there are so many restrictions that were placed upon you guys. And you and I both know that, the restaurants are not designed to run at 50% capacity. It just doesn't work all that well. But, you're still here, so thank you for pursuing that. What do you see about the future in the restaurant industry as we move forward with COVID? Do you have any input on that?
I wish I did. I wish I knew. I think, we've got a great network of local restaurants that I talk to quite a bit. And nobody, we're running at about 35-40% capacity right now. And so are a lot of people. We're seeing slight increases, but increases that it's going to take 2 years at this rate to get back to normal. I remember when this happened, back in March when we closed, and we went, well, we're closed now, but it almost was I almost looked at it as a good thing because, I only thought we'd be closed for 2-3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, it's that time of year, it's February, March, where things are a little slow anyway. The market's been tough anyway. And so I thought, boy, let's take restaurants away from everybody for 2-3 weeks. And I bet you that they'll can't wait to get back. And so this is a good thing. So we're shut down, but when we open we're just going to get packed with people. And as COVID ran on from a few weeks to a few months, and now we're back open, and it's not that the reason I think we're down so much, it's not so much that it's not because of the restrictions. It's not because of the spacing. I think it's because, people are scared, people are worried, and rightly so. But who you're getting coming out of the people that feel safe to come out right now, and who everybody else is still cautious. And so I don't think you can lift restrictions, and I don't think that'll make a difference. I don't think we're really going to see anything coming back to normal until, they've really got a handle on this virus, whether it's a vaccine or just better ways to conduct everyday life. I don't know, but I think we're definitely going to be in this for quite a while yet before we start seeing any kind of life how it used to be.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think you're correct. And, we take all the precautionary measures and things like that, but the people who don't feel safe. But, I know that with you guys, I know with your mind, you will pivot, you will keep making things happen. You'll keep getting creative, and you'll figure out a way to keep making it work.
That's what makes waking up in the morning fun, right?
Absolutely. It's exactly it. So, Tim, I really want to thank you for your time today, and thank you for your stories. This was great. I could talk to you forever, honestly.
I know. Let's keep going. I'm done though. I've had enough of my anxiety of talking myself over. So if we kept going, I'd have to talk to you. But
I don't want to push you too far. So, Tim, where do we go to find you?
Where do you go to find me?
Where do we go to find you?
You can find me at any given day at either one of our restaurants, because we've got the Lancaster Tap House in Harbor Landing. And hopefully by the end of next week, even our brand new former capital opening as a brand new Lancaster smack dab in downtown Regina.
Okay, I was gonna let you talk about that. I wasn't gonna go poking and prodding, but I wasn't sure if that information was privy or not. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, this is, this is a good story, because we were convinced, we had plans to reopen the Capitol as a burger bar, and the name was going to be Local Burger, and it was going to be a locally sourced burger bar, and we were fairly excited about it. We'd always talked about doing a Lancaster downtown. The size of the kitchen we had, we couldn't pull off the menu we had. And so we came up with this sort of sub-brand of, it was going to have the Lancaster brand and called Local Burger. And a very interesting thing happened about a month or so ago is we found a general manager that we wanted to hire, and her name is Tracy Haroff. And I gave her an interview, and she called me that night, and she asked me a really cool question. She asked me, are you guys set 100% on doing Local Burger? And my gut reaction was, yeah, of course we are. This is what we're doing. Why are you asking that? And I got off the phone with her, and I thought about it, and I went, well, I guess technically we're not. There's nothing with a name on it that we've done yet, right? But we're doing this. We want to do it. And I got to work in the morning, and I talked to Joel, and I said, what do you think? It's like, Tracy asked this question, or of course we're doing Local Burger, right? And he said, well, yeah. And what had happened over COVID too is Joel and I had rebuilt the whole Lancaster menu, and we kind of had streamlined it and pared it down. And I went, well, wait a minute, like we actually can do the menu there now. Like that's not a block anymore. And he went, yeah, you're right. We can do the menu there. So why aren't we doing a Lancaster? And then it was a light bulb of, well, shit, we're doing the Lancaster. And so a lot of people were still expecting this burger bar, but we've kind of pivoted on that to come back to we've also learned that there's, that people love the Lancaster and people love what the brand is. And so we're pretty excited to open, that same concept, fully, not just kind of a modified version of it, of the Lancaster downtown. So that's how that came about. And it was, I think that was a pretty neat story of how just that one question just kicked us out of our comfort zones and gave us what I think is the right obvious answer. So.
Yeah, isn't it interesting? Again, somebody coming in your life and the shifting gears on
Yeah.
you, right? Don't see it coming. So,
yeah.
And I will say that having a little bit more action in downtown Regina is much needed.
Yeah.
And it's another place to go to be able to another one. We need more restaurants, in my opinion.
Yeah.
We need more good restaurants, actually, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think to create a little bit of something going on in downtown Regina, because it has been actually quite lacking. So
yeah, and I've talked to a lot of the other restaurant guys, and they're pretty excited to have us down there just to get another piece.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you love the capital as it was, we're still eventually, as we can, going to have a lot of live music. We're still going to have some nice cocktails paired with our Lancaster food.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have a lot of fun stuff there. This is so we've had these arcade machines custom built. I'm pretty excited about this, and so they're going to be retro arcades. So 80s and 90s, Donkey Kong on one machine, Street Fighter 2 on the other. And what we're going to do with those, they're old school 25-cent machines. And every month we're going to have a local charity, and all the proceeds from the arcade is going to go to the local charity. And so that's just it's just what we've been talking about, is just connecting and doing fun stuff. So we're pretty excited to bring this downtown.
And another way to better the pond.
Exactly. Yeah.
There you go. See, I didn't even know it was going to happen. Look at that. This all just comes out of this conversation.
I'm way too excited about these arcades, by the way.
That's actually pretty cool. So we can find you at the Lancaster. In a week or so, we can find you down at the Lancaster downtown Regina. For those listeners who are around the world, where else do we find you?
That's about it right now. I mean, we can't go anywhere, right? So
Are you a LinkedIn guy? Are you a Facebook guy?
Oh, yeah. You can find me. You can find the business. I don't have any personal. I'm on LinkedIn, but I don't have any personal Twitter or Facebook, because I am the brand, right? So at the Lancaster is our Facebook handle, and at the Lancaster_CA is Twitter. So that's where you can find me. But I don't have anything personal, because anything I have to say, I say through those handles anyway. So. And
so when somebody tweets the Lancaster, they're actually really tweeting you?
You're tweeting me, yeah.
Okay.
For better or worse, sometimes I've said some things from the business that should have been more personal, but.
Well, I'm not going to drag into this, but I saw on I think it was Twitter actually, that there was a bit of negative pushback on the whole burger thing with the believe in the gold and yada yada. But let's not get into that, because that's a whole follow acts. But
it's done and over with. That was a war I didn't want to get into, but good old social media, right?
We are, yes, exactly, and we're not going to give the naysayers any energy.
No, it's too easy to get on your computer and say things about people. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so there you have it, folks. It was a great time here with you, Tim. I really, truly appreciate your time. I said we could probably go on forever, but this is Warren Barry flocking off to take you beyond the pond to better the pond, because we're better together. Thanks for your time today, Tim. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Warren. Appreciate it.